So without further ado, allow me to introduce myself. So my name is Magda Tabak. I have already over 3,000 hours. Actually, now there should be closer to 4,000 hours. I should update that slide of training that I delivered internationally to participants on 4 continents. And my why and why I do what I do is because I want to help people lead better lives through increased self-awareness, better communication, and improved stress management. But training, I didn't start with training my career. I started my career with 12 years in the corporate environment in roles that had a lot to do with strategy planning and then project management, team management. But guess what? I was a volunteer trainer in the company where I stayed the most. This is Vodafone in Romania. For 6 years, I was doing training and I loved it. And guess what? After a year of a lot of long periods of chronic stress and burnout. I didn't know at that time that I was going through burnout. That was 2017. So there was not so much information available. So I was just like, what the hell is happening, to me, because I was not recognizing myself. After that year, I decided to change my career. And this is when I started. During that year, I started to get certified as a trainer, first in the process communication model, which is a training based on psychology that deals with communication, stress management, and motivation. Then I entered into the area of neuroscience. But while I am geeky, I don't do neuroscience in complicated words. You're going to see also today, I like simple words, simple framework, and applicable examples. And that's what I loved a lot about these 2 certifications that I've done. And the last thing I got certified in last year, emotional assertiveness, which is applied emotional intelligence, and is the training I didn't know I needed. This is how I like to call it, because I discovered, like, oh my God, I was not emotionally assertive. So I'm on a journey of growth, and thank you for joining me for 1 hour of this journey. I hope you're going to get a lot of value from it. Oh, and I also wrote a short book. Yeah, simple neuroscience. Guess what? The same subject, because if it pained me so much, I wanted to share it with the world. And this is an ebook hosted by Bookboon. Now let's finish the publicity moment, the advertising. Let me share what I will talk about in these about 40 minutes of webinar. I was saying, 2 frameworks and 2 strong examples of practices that I use every day. The first framework is the framework of the rider and the elephant metaphor, is the old brain and the new brain. Please write in the chat if you are familiar with this metaphor and if you've heard about, the old brain, the new brain, and if you've used it before. So this is, the first framework. And then based on it, we're going to look at the rider and the elephant as decision-making process systems. Okay, so Tina heard it from me. Catherine, she didn't heard about it for now. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, familiar with it. Cool. So this is one framework that I love. It's simple and powerful. Yeah. Okay, also from me. Good. Yeah, I like to talk a lot about the things I'm using. Cool. Then the second framework is the SCARF model. Yeah, the 5 universal buttons of our old brain. It's again a very simple model, but oh my God, so powerful. And it really clarified for me so many conflict situations. Yeah, so that's going to be the second framework. And I will share also some do's and don'ts when it comes to applying SCARF model at work or at home. And then I will close with 2 useful exercises for releasing stress, exercises that you can do in the moment. One of them will maybe require a bit of, preparation, but we're going to get to them. Let me now share the first framework, the rider and the elephant. And this is based on the triune brain theory. And this is the most well-known macro description of the brain anatomy. However, it is a very old description of the brain. It was proposed by Paul MacLean in 1952, so it's old. And of course, it is oversimplified. Yeah, this is the little star. Take care, this is oversimplified. Yeah, but it still holds some truth, and it helps us to understand the main functions of the brain at a very macro level. And even if in modern neuroscience, we don't talk anymore about the triune brain, We now talk about networks and the connectome. This theory still keeps a high historical and didactical value, mainly because it's so simple and directly applicable. So what the theory says, and I already have there the beginning of it, is that the brain is composed out of three parts corresponding to different stages of our evolution. And the first one is the brainstem. Yeah, I'm trying to get, my laser pointer here. Yeah, the brainstem here. This is the most ancient part of the brain, and it is thought to have appeared around 300 million years ago, so a long time ago. And it's mostly responsible for maintaining body functions such as breathing, heart rate. Yeah, it's the part of us that takes care that we stay alive. Yeah, it also routes information up and down between the brain and the nervous system. And it's also dealing with some instinctive behavior and the motor learning. It is often called the reptilian brain because that part of the brain is dominant in the reptiles. But then again, this is not 100% reflecting reality because the reptiles also have the other two structures that we have here, the limbic system and the neocortex, but just to some extent. Now, let's move to the limbic system. This one evolved mainly in the small mammals, and this is why MacLean called it the paleomammalian brain. And it is thought to have evolved around 200, 250 million years ago. And it is mostly responsible for the treatment of memory and emotions, for processing emotions. Also, it's the part responsible for our primitive survival functions such as feeding, reproduction, and parenting. Because if we are to compare, the reptiles with the small mammals, let's think of a monkey. Yeah, the reptile, let's say the snake, mama snake, she might go around the eggs that she planted when the little baby snakes are going out. And if she's hungry, she's going to eat the baby snakes. You're not, yeah, I know. It's kind of painful. Yeah, or think of the tortoise. They go, they swim for thousands of miles and they leave their eggs somewhere on an island and they just leave them there. They don't stay to take care of them. However, when we think about the little mammals and the big mammals, I don't know, monkeys, elephants, they stay with their babies. They do parenting. Yeah, they protect those babies for a while. If you are a human, that's going to be 18, 20 years, maybe even more, depending in which culture you live. So this is the limbic system. Yeah, when you have the limbic system well developed, then you do that. And it's quite a big difference. Let's see then the crown jewel, the cortex, is the most recent part of the brain. I like to call it the newest gadget. It is particularly large in primates and especially more so in humans. And it is thought to have evolved around, look here, 150,000 years ago. Here we had millions. This is hundreds of thousands years ago. Therefore, it is much more recent than the other two parts of the brain. And just to put these numbers into perspective, if the brain history was 24 hours, one day, the history of the cortex is 45 seconds, not even a minute. It's that new. So that's why I say is our coolest and newest gadget, but we're going to see it comes with some things to improve. Let's say it's still in beta testing, or if it's something before beta testing, that's where this neocortex is. Yeah, but the cortex is responsible for all the complex functions of the brain, including perception, planning, attention, abstract thinking, language, empathy, decision making, error finding, impulse control, seeing the future or the past, so planning for the future, making decisions based on what I want for the future, etc. So it's a really cool gadget. Yeah, more about it in a later slide. But what I just want to repeat is that this division should be considered a historical approximation, not necessarily a scientifically validated subdivision, because the new view in neuroscience encompasses the understanding that many parts of the brain are interconnected and do not, neatly separate emotions from the so-called rational thought. However, as I said, just because it's so simple, this is so powerful and so helpful. So now let me simplify it a little bit more. And for this reason, I will introduce the metaphor of the rider and elephant. And this was first introduced by Jonathan Haidt in his book, The Happiness Hypothesis, in 2006. So according to him, we could simplify the idea of the triune brain by simply naming these three divisions as follows. So the cortex, we're going to call it the rider or our conscious brain. And the limbic system and reptilian brain, we are going to call it the elephant, the unconscious brain. Well, the biggest problem in our day-to-day life is that the rider can only function when the elephant is calm. And this is why many times, even if we have very good plans for, I don't know, let's say organizational change, especially in this time of change, if we don't engage first the elephant of our people, of our teams, and not only the rider, with the logical area, the change might not happen, or it might get blocked in different ways that we didn't even think about it. Yeah. Let's look in more detail at how the rider and the elephant function, and let's make a comparison. So the rider solves complex problems, while the elephant solves simple problems. The rider, our new brain, that cool gadget, is going to think about, I don't know, why not, how should we deal with the strategy of the company for the next 5 years? Yeah, that's a complex problem. How do we deal with AI, I don't know, impacting our work, etc., etc. Elephant solves simple problem. Is this good for life, for survival? Okay, I go towards it. It's not good for life. I feel some danger. I run away from it. It's yes, no. It's that simple. Then the rider manages a simple single tasks. The elephant manages multiple tasks. But what kind of, let's say, task manages the elephant? I know, breathing, having our heart continue to beat, driving a car while still talking on the phone, but not looking at the phone, yeah, with the hands-free, yeah. While the rider, that single task might be, I don't know, actually deciding on the strategy or doing, I don't know what, simulations or whatever complex thing our rider helps us to do. And see, the idea of multitasking, probably some of you already know that multitasking with complex tasks is in fact a myth, because our brain, our rider, takes it one by one. And that's why when we do multitasking, it actually takes longer, because our brain will still do one by one, won't do complex tasks together at the same time. Then let's see, the rider is flexible and open to novelty. Is that part of the brain asking, how about we try and solve this in a different way? Why not try this new method that I heard about? But the elephant is more rigid. If I have a belief that served me for years, the elephant memorizes it. And the tendency will be to always apply it in the similar context, because, if it kept me safe for so long, why change it? Yeah, and it takes a lot of effort and awareness from the rider to change the behavior of the elephant. Another important difference, the rider is focused on positive information. Yeah, it's sensitive to positive information because it's focused on satisfaction. Yeah, the rider wants us to be well, to evolve, to try new things, to be happy. The elephant doesn't give a shit about us being happy as long as we stay alive. And that's the hard truth. Excuse my French. I do tend to speak this kind of French. You might hear it a bit more. Yeah. So the elephant is focused on negative information, because for the Neanderthal and whatever other, past humanoids, when the elephant was focusing on what can go wrong, is that saber-toothed tiger going to come and eat me? Well, only those humans that focused on the negative survived. The other ones might have been helped to disappear. Yeah, so the elephant wants us not to be bad, to survive, to stay alive. Full stop. Another one. The rider has a very high energy consumption, gets tired easily. But the elephant is very performant, energy efficient. Yeah. And this is because the rider, as I told you, is still in beta testing, is still not efficient. We can talk in a few, I know, dozens of million years if we're still going to be around, and then probably is going to be, at a better level of consumption. But at this point, after a full day of, I know, workshops defining the business strategy, as you can see, business strategy is in my mind because that's what I've done from 12 years in my jobs, most of them. Yeah, so after a full day of talking about business strategy, we are depleting the batteries of the rider. But if we spend the same amount of time with our friends, just chilling, having fun, the elephant and the rider will still be up and running because we didn't use that part that hard. Then the rider is controlled, slow, intentional, cognitive. It needs to think to actually make sense of what is happening there. Yeah, it needs to understand what's the best option. So it takes more time. The elephant is automatic, fast, unconscious, intuitive, because if it would have stayed to analyze a lot, when the saber-tooth tiger was around, we wouldn't have been around. So it needs to be very, very fast. Yeah. And another difference, there are many other differences, but I'm just focusing on this at this moment. The rider is focused on long term, on the future. It wants us, to be well in the future. Think about, because that's on my mind right now, a diet, or doing sports. I want to be healthy for the future. And then the elephant is focused on the present, eating the ice cream or the burger right now. Yeah, because it feels good. It's good for survival. Yeah? So this is the rider and the elephant. I hope it makes sense, and I know it's because it's so simple will help you to understand better, how we react and why we react this way. Okay, now as the next point, let's look at the rider and the elephant as decision-making systems and how they impact our decision-making processes, because you might be surprised of what is happening there. So the rider, as I said, is the conscious part of our brain. The elephant is the unconscious part of our brain. And the type of response, that we get from the conscious pathway is a verbal and explicit response. Yeah, it talks about numbers, about reasons, verbal. Language is one of the functions of the rider. The elephant doesn't have a language function. The elephant talks with gut feeling, but not with words. Yeah. The response that we get, as I said, from the unconscious system is implicit, gut feeling. I feel we should do that, but it's not a clear explanation of why that is the best path forward. In terms of occurrence, how often do we use them for decision making? This was the big surprise for me. We are only using our rider, so the conscious logical brain, for less than 10% of the decisions we make. And more than 90% is the unconscious brain. And you might say what? Like, hello, I'm doing, my math and the Excel with plus, minus and stuff. Well, you know what is happening? Most of the times the elephant gets the gut feeling and says, yeah, this should be my decision, and then sends a message coded like, hey, rider, invent for yourself whatever reason you will believe that it makes sense for you, but this is the decision I want. And the proof for this kind of shocking, for me it was a shocking statistic, is given in the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. I don't know if you read it. It's like a brick of a book, but oh my God, it's an amazing book. Is written, so it's actually Daniel Kahneman and his colleague, Tversky. They Tversky died, unfortunately, Daniel Kahneman. They are psychologists, and their book actually got them the Nobel Prize for Economy because their book proved that the economic agent doesn't make decisions logically. Yeah, there are so many examples then where you realize, with studies and with a scientific base, that actually we don't make most of our decisions, we don't make them logically. This is the book. I strongly recommend it. It broke a lot of paradigms for me. Then, when it comes to the speed, The rider, the conscious pathway, is very slow because it needs to calculate, to think about the future. How will this be impacted and all these things? While the elephant is very fast. When it comes to the logic, the rider follows a linear reasoning and cognitive logic, while the elephant follows an associative and emotional logic. It integrates much more parameters than the conscious pathway. So to give you an example, because I've seen this in the workplace, if a former, let's say, if a colleague, in a former workplace, they associated a lack of communication with some bad news, like the company restructuring, they might associate this again unconsciously when they notice in their current company that they are keeping silent about things. Because the elephant has learned that, silence, not good. Then, when it comes to limitations, the rider is limited by the amount of information our conscious mind can process. And our working memory, the explicit memory that is used by the rider, is limited. So there is only so much information that we can hold in our conscious mind at a particular moment. However, on the other hand, the elephant can take into account more data because it keeps it in the subconscious. However, it can be strongly biased based on negative informations in the past, negative situation. It will project the same for the future. Time frame, well, for the rider, the rider looks at the long-term perspective, but the elephant lives in the here and now. What I was saying earlier, the instant gratification. I will have that ice cream now, the burger now, the fries now, versus, following with my diet and slimming down and leading a healthier life. And I know my elephant is very strong when it comes to that, I just ate some fries yesterday and I was supposed to not touch them. And now I'm drooling, so that's my life, just so you know. Cool. So what does this mean for me in my day-to-day life? If you want to engage someone, start by talking to their elephant and use what we have just learned here, how they work, to help the elephant feel comfortable. Tell stories, use metaphors, use sounds, shapes, smell, have fun, move. Moving helps the elephant feel calm. Check in before meetings. Create space for sharing and safety, and take a walk if you have a one-on-one. It's going to feel a lot better. And some of these ideas are going to become even clearer and why they work so well when we're going to go through the next framework. The next framework, the SCARF model. This is our 5 universal buttons. These are the 5 buttons of our elephant. We all have them. Some of them, we might feel them stronger than others. So let's see what are these buttons. Status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. This model was developed by the neuroscientist David Rock, and it helps us to actually understand what drives our unconscious decision making, what triggers the elephant, what triggers the stress in us. At the end of the webinar, my assistant is going to share a link for you if you are interested in taking the test that the Neuro Leadership, the company founded by David Rock, shares for free. If you want to check what's your most sensitive button, I can already tell you because I've done the test. The most sensitive buttons for me are fairness and relatedness. So when we push these buttons in somebody positively, they are going to trigger the reward response, and we, or the elephant of that person, is going to move towards that stimuli, towards that trigger. When they are pushed negatively, they trigger the threat response, which lead us to go run away from the threat. And let me give a better definition of the SCARF model, and I'm also going to share one book here. The SCARF model, again, status. What does it mean? The name already kind of says it, but is our sense of importance relative to others. When the status is challenged, it's very hard for us to think rationally. It triggers the elephant, which throws off the rider. And this is what happened many times when we act in a way that doesn't make sense for us. Hey, but I'm always so composed and so calm. Why did I react that way? Yeah, when the elephant is stressed, the rider is far behind. And think of status might be pushed negatively when maybe somebody dismisses your idea in public. Yeah, that's one of the things that happens quite a lot, and that's when our status button is pushed negatively. I'll give you more examples in the next slide. Second element, certainty. This talks about our need for clarity so that we have the ability to make clear predictions about the future. It's about our safety in the end. Yeah, and in the turbulent times we've been through, if we think starting, I don't know, maybe with COVID, now with AI happening, all the changes, the geopolitical changes that are happening, our certainty buttons are pushed negatively quite a lot. And you know what? Remember, the elephant is focused on the negative bias that we have. This is leading us to imagine the worst. What our brain does when it doesn't know, when it doesn't have certainty, is putting there all the negative scenarios that it can think about or feel about. Yeah. So let's say, shit hits the fan. Again, I'm speaking French. Yeah. And a company, goes through restructuring. It's better if the leaders communicate clearly on the process, the magnitude, what is going to happen, what are the plans, versus leaving people in uncertainty, because people will imagine the worst, and then productivity falls, and then a lot of it's going to be a whole lot of negative experiences and then actions because of that. The next button is autonomy. And this is a key button for intrinsic motivation because it talks about our sense of control over our lives. And this is a good, when a good leader knows how to use autonomy positively, it will think of ways to give as much freedom, autonomy to his or her team as much as possible, even if some degree of control is needed. But autonomy empowers team. And when you have a micromanager as a line manager, that's when your autonomy is pushed constantly in a negative manner. Yeah. Then we have relatedness, the sense of connection with others. We are social animals. Yeah. And we need to feel that we are part of a group. This is part of what makes us human. And there are actually studies that show that social rejection is actually very harmful to our health. Yeah, studies show that people who feel lonely, and the key word here is feel lonely. Yeah, they suffer the same negative impact of health on their health as if they would smoke 15 cigarettes a day. And attention, there are people who, even when they are surrounded by others, they still feel lonely, just as there are people who love to be alone and don't feel lonely when they are alone. So the key word here is they feel lonely. So social rejection literally hurts us. And this is where I want to recommend this book, Lost Connection by Johan Hari. Talks a lot about the level of solitude and disconnection, yeah, where our society is, yeah, it is at this moment. Fairness, yeah, it looks like this one is also deeply ingrained in us. Even the monkeys are sensitive to fairness. If you give a cucumber to a monkey, it will be perfectly fine. But if you keep giving the monkey the cucumber while you give to a friend monkey, I don't know, a banana or a grape, the first monkey is going to throw that cucumber in your face. And I'm not just inventing that. There's actually a study from France de Waal, and I will also recommend you at the end, I'll give you the link to a TED talk. Yeah, it's about moral behavior in animals. So if mammals do that, who are not, yet humans, we will do that. We are going to suffer at the same level, if not worse. So fairness, again, very, very important. So what are the do's and don'ts in applying the SCARF model? And I'll give the example for work, but I'm sure, you can think of ways you might push and might want to stop pushing, negatively and start pushing positively at home too. So for the status, this column is the one when we push negatively. So don't do that. And this is yes, do that. So for status, we might push that button negatively if we challenge people publicly, or we tell people that their ideas are wrong. And we might actually believe that that idea is not very, we don't agree with it. But the way we do it makes the difference. We might just say, hey, I really appreciate that this is your conclusion, and thank you very much for sharing. What about we look at things from this perspective too? And then you don't attack. You say, thank you, and let's look at something additional. How to push it positively? Have the difficult conversation privately. And you already know, when you want to do the constructive feedback, you do it one-on-one. You don't do it in public, because that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to push the status negatively if you do it in public. And I know I've been on the receiving end of a public constructive feedback. Yeah, not happy. You can do the public praising. Yes, please do that as much as you can. Of course, you need to really believe that. Don't fake it, because that's going to push some other buttons. Yeah, but do it publicly as much as you can, and ask people for their opinions. That pushes positively the status button. Then certainty. How to push it negatively? Not recommended. Have unclear expectations. Do that report. And it's the first time you ask that person to do that report. And then you might complain that it's not done as you wanted. Oof, that's a tough one. Hoard information. Probably you've been on the receiving end of not enough information, or you found out that the information was available and you didn't get it, and it caused you a lot of extra stress and extra work, or change the plan at the last minute. Yeah. How do you push it positively? Clarify expectations, communicate often and openly, stick to agreements. Autonomy. Do not micromanage. Do not take decisions for the group. There might be moments when the shit has hit the fan and you need to move fast, and that's okay. But you can just share, guys, this is a difficult situation right now. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to go on what I think is the best. Sorry about that, but this doesn't happen often. We are humans, we understand, and something like that would actually push another button positively, the relatedness. But we'll get to that one. Then for autonomy, another no-no, yeah, disregard other people ideas. You might ask them for ideas on how to better, I don't know, do whatever process you do in your company, and you disregard their ideas without even mentioning or discussing it. What to do, on the other hand, provide choice on how to proceed. Guys, we have these three options. Which one do you think is best? I have, pluses and minuses for all of them. Let's decide together. Take decisions as a team and be open to the ideas of others. For relatedness, don't encourage competition. We might say, especially in the sales environment, what, but that helps, to higher results and stuff. Yeah, but that puts the elephant in a continuous stress. Don't allow people to work in isolation. Yeah. And don't focus only on business. Because, sometimes even if people love to focus on their job and are very, very super productive, it helps to be seen as a human being, not only as a human doing. What to do? Establish shared goals, promote social interactions and shared experiences. And for the fairness, the don'ts are: don't favor some team members, don't ask for ideas only from a selected few, and don't take credit for other people's work. And on the yes, please do this, respect the expertise and experience of your people, gather input widely, and recognize people contributions. So tell me, please, in the chat, if you have been on the receiving end of any of the pluses or minuses, or the do's or don'ts for any of these buttons. I have been on the negative for the status, for certainty, for relatedness, and for fairness in my recent past. Let's see. Okay, Tina, sorry to hear about that. A lot of minuses for all of these. Please do share so I can drink from my coffee. I've been missing it. Negative certainty, not getting expected info. Thank you, Katarina. Yeah, that is tough. And especially if the whole organization is going through changes or something, it's even more difficult. Yes, a little bit of everything in different points of view of life. Yeah, corporate, yeah, also while freelancing. Thank you. Catherine, constructive feedback criticism by my own, okay, on a call with lots of people. Oh man, that is very, very painful. And I've been there and I still remember it, you know. I need to cleanse some negative emotions since that time. Yeah. Thomas, have unclear expectation within my team. Yes, that's very unproductive. Okay, Tina, also some pluses. Yes, good, very good. Minus on the relatedness, not. Hmm. Alina, been through unclear changes and expectation determined by those. Absolutely. Thank you guys for sharing. Sophia, certainty, have unclear expectation with clients. Oh yeah, that's another very important one. True. And Katarina, I'm also guilty of changing plans on last minute and not being clear enough. Okay, yeah, it happens. So good point. Yeah, yeah. Now you know and pay more attention to that. I think when we work in the fast pace of the corporate environment, sometimes it happens that yeah we need to do that. Now we are more aware. Yeah, it causes stress, and whatever we can communicate, it helps. Thank you guys for sharing. Oh, you know, I'm glad I'm not the only one receiving on the receiving end of the negative part. But of course, I knew. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't realize how important these elements are. You know, we might just dismiss them as little things, but if they are done repeatedly, it is painful, and they break the trust and the team spirit. Cool. Okay. So these were the two frameworks, the elephant and the rider and the scarf model. I think you agree they are simple but powerful and they help us to see things a bit differently. So now let me share with you yeah, the two useful exercises for releasing stress. Now I can actually say for calming our elephants because now we know that this is what they are doing. So I'm actually curious to see if you already knew these practices. So one of them, I love it. It's the one I use the most, the 5-4-3-2-1. It's actually has been created or proposed by the Mayo Clinic in the States. And what does it help us do? It helps us ground to the present, to the here and now. When the elephant is like, and whatever it's telling us to do, run, run, fight, flight, you know about this. Yeah, this is telling us chill. Yeah, it's the chill pill. This is how I like to call it. Because what is making me do is to stop and look around and notice and use my five senses. So it's telling me, look at five things you can see. So maybe I'll just say, okay, I see my screen, I see the plant, I see my glass of water, I see my glass of coffee, and my notebook in front of me. Five things. Four things you can touch. The same, I can touch this, this, this. Three things you can hear. Two things you can smell, and one thing you can taste, my coffee. This helps the elephant. It's kind of like, you know, to breathe deeply and to calm down. And when we do this, it helps us to come back in the here and now with awareness. Yeah? And reduces stress and anxiety. And actually, you know, the Mayo Clinic uses this technique as an anti-anxiety and anti-panic attack technique. Yeah, so it's very, very powerful. This is the first one. Now, let me see the second one. And I just read Tina's message in the chat. Cool. Good to see the grandmother knows this kind of techniques. Okay, another one. Name it to tame it. Do you know this one? Have you heard about it? Okay, some of you have, most of you haven't. What is this about? And I've been using this quite a lot now since with emotional assertiveness even more. So this technique is forcing our brain to use language, you know, to name an emotion that I'm experiencing. Actually, more emotions. Most of the times we experience more emotions at the same time. Yeah, and the language, remember, it's a capacity of that is specific to the rider. So when the elephant gets crazy and I'm forcing my rider to use the language function, it brings back oxygen and blood to the neocortex and thus empowers the rider. So how do I do it? I stop and I name the emotions that I'm experiencing at the moment. And guess what? Here's something that is very, very helpful. It's called the Wheel of Emotions. There are many versions of it on the internet. I will give you a link. Actually, Vedrana, my assistant, will share a link at the end with this link to a file with this Wheel of Emotion. You can print it and use it. So You can say as many emotions as you can, and you might find out that you have no idea what 1, 2, 3 emotions from here mean. I had to use the dictionary for 3 of them. And the good thing is, you can train yourself by using any version of the wheel of emotions you can find on the internet. There are some very simple ones with less emotions and these more complex ones. Yeah. And look what I've done. And this is something else that I'm proposing to you. This is one of my wheel of emotions that's been printed at the beginning of this year. And what do I do to become aware of my emotions? I set a reminder on my clock so it's printed, nice and without any add-ons. I put 3 reminders during the day. They just tell me, what do you feel now? And I put a dot at those emotions. Yeah, there can be 1, 2, 3, 4, no limit. And this is what's happened. This I've been using, I think, for 2 or 3 weeks because I wanted to see what's the universe of my emotions in that period. And then I would look and see what impacted me. Luckily, it's quite good. It was joy, a lot of joy, love here a bit, and I know what was happening there. Yeah, some anger. That was my husband, Frank. No, I'm kidding. Not just him. Yeah, and some surprise. Yeah, so guys, you might call it simple, but I strongly recommend it. It helps so much to bring you back down and stop the elephant from, putting the negative in front. So, very happy to see that I have finished in time. That doesn't always happen. Thank you everybody for joining me. It has been a pleasure to meeting you, to seeing you again. Some of you I haven't seen in months or in years. I will love you and leave you. Thank you. Have a lovely day. And thank you for making time and spending it with me.